Hi, and welcome to Series 3 of the Pen to Publish podcasts with your hosts, Alexa Whitten, author, typesetter, and independent publisher, and
Alexa Tewkesbury, author, editor, and proofreader.
Hi, and welcome to the Pen to Publish podcast with me, Alexa, and Alexa Tewkesbury. And today we're going to be looking at covers. So, Alexa, tell me, do you judge a book by its cover?
Well, I think I must do, since you mention it, because I bought a book just a couple of weeks ago because the cover is so beautiful and intriguing, and I just wanted to know the story that went with the cover. And so far, the story is living up to its cover perfectly. So yes, a cover can definitely be the difference between me buying a book and not buying a book. That's, when it's a kind of spur of the moment purchase. I just happened to see this cover in the window and I thought, oh, I've got to have that book.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't, right? I think anyone who says they don't judge a book by a cover is maybe telling fibs, unless it's a recommendation. I think if I've been recommended a book, I'm much more likely to buy it regardless of what the cover looks like. So going on the fact that we do kind of judge books by the cover, it's really important, obviously, to get the cover right, no matter what the genre. Although I would say children's books are probably the toughest to get right, followed by fiction and teen fiction. Business books can get away, or, the how-to books can get away with being slightly less creative, as most people writing business books for lead generation will already have a list to market to, and most of their followers' fans will buy it regardless of the cover. Although I'm not suggesting you shouldn't bother with a great design for a business book, I'm just saying that you can be slightly simpler with your design. However, no matter what genre, you need to have the basics in place. And I'm going to share with you how you can maximize your front and back cover retail space to make sure your book is as appealing as possible. So business books first. Then we'll move on to children and then fiction. I think I'm doing fiction last because it's the easiest to do in my view, and there's also the least amount of information on there. So firstly, you do need to make sure that your cover stands out. If you have a think where it's going to be displayed, most likely for a business book, it's going to be online, then you're only going to get the front cover shown. Now, if you remember last week's episode, I mentioned the ingredients for your book, the foreword. Well, this is where you can get clever, as you can then get that someone who is maybe a known to write the foreword. And then obviously that can then be used on the front of the book. Plus, the person who's written the foreword will probably be more than happy to promote the book as well. Lucille, our guest on episode 8, got a very well-known body language expert, Mark Bowden, to write her foreword. And he's prolific on LinkedIn, which is where Lucille's ideal client hangs out. And I've seen more than one post mention her book from him. In fact, they're now doing a series of YouTube shorts together. So Lucille is able to tap into all of Mark's contacts by having that connection with him. Then obviously after the foreword, I usually like having the foreword at the top of the book. After that comes the title. Now, a good title is obviously key to getting buyers. I'm not going to be talking about how to come up with a great title. That's something we're going to be discussing in the next series, the added extras. But the title wants to be bold and clear. And this is where having a cover designer will pay for itself. If you're going to be using just typography for your cover and no image, which is very common in business style books, then you're going to need to be really skillful with how you do this. The E-Myth is a great example of typography, as is the cover Power versus Force by David Hawkins. It's a black and white cover. And it's really powerful because it's just using typeface and a single black and white, which is really clever. And then what I like to do is you want to make sure that whatever typeface you use on the cover, it's then used within the book as well. In fact, this is a rule I apply for the majority of my books, be it fiction or a children's book. Getting that title typeface correct is a big part of your cover design. So do spend some time getting one that suits your genre, your branding, and your subject matter. After the title comes the strapline. Now, this is very important if you've used a slightly obscure title. The strapline should clearly state what the book will be covering in a succinct, clear way. I think you've had your fair share of coming up with straplines, haven't you?
Yes, and it can be hard. It's one of those challenges that my brain won't let go. Once I know I've got to come up with something like that, my brain keeps ticking away in the background until it finds the thing it likes. I remember I had to come up with one for a suspense thriller that I'd edited. And when it popped into my head, it was so exciting because it worked on two different levels of the story. And the strapline was actually a question: what's your blood worth? So straplines can be used very effectively for fiction as well as for nonfiction, and they can add a bit of punch to the title. But there's certainly something you need to spend time over. So don't just grab something out of the air and think, oh, that'll do, because it's not the main title. Make sure it really works for your book and that it adds something, some extra offering that will make a reader want to buy your book.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially with fiction, I've just done a title recently, a book cover for a person this is their second novel in the series. The novel has a title, but it doesn't have a strapline, because most fiction books tend not to have a strapline. Sometimes they can. Most mainstream books don't. But we have added the fact that it's the follow-up thriller to the previous book. So we've added that as a sort of strapline. So it makes it look like, oh, there's more than one in the series. So that's always good. Now, stickers. These can be a corner strap, as in a corner triangle bit, or a round sticker-like object, with writing that states that the book includes something, like includes X amount pounds worth of free downloads, or newly updated to include something. My second edition of my book, Publish Your Way to More Clients, has this on the cover, clearly stating that it's a revised edition and what the updates are. I think this can be a really smart way of getting a little bit more info on the cover. And you can also use it on children's books too. Then you have the author's name. Now, this can be at the top or at the bottom of the book. It's up to you. And I like it nice and bold as well. So that's the front cover of a business self-help type book. Then you have the spine. Now, depending on the number of pages and how you get it printed, this will determine whether or not you have any room for the text on the spine. If you're printing through KDP, that's Amazon Printing Arm, then you'll need to have at least 80 pages before they allow you to have anything on the spine. Otherwise, it's just too small a space. I've seen books with less pages, but with writing on it. But if the writing is too small, what's the point in trying to squeeze something on there? I like to include the publisher's logo on the spine. I have one for Compass Publishing, and then the name of the book, and then the name of the author. I like the spine to run down from top to bottom with the text facing the back of the book. I have seen spines with the text running the other way, and it just looks a bit odd. If your book has an ongoing logo running through it, I did one recently where the author used a light bulb to denote an idea that she had, then I used that same light bulb on the spine as well. It just helps to tie the cover to the inside of the book. You can also have the names stacked on top of each other, as in the first name and then the surname goes underneath it, rather than running in one straight line, but you must make sure the spine is wide enough to accommodate that. Now the back cover. This can have several sections. I like a business or self-help book to have a headline at the top and not a repeat of the title. Why have a repeat of the title when people know already what the book's called? So something enticing, a question that gets the reader thinking, or something suggestive of what they're going to learn. Then you have the back blurb, and this is the all-important description of what the book is about. Take your time with writing this, as you'll no doubt use it on Amazon and other online retail places. You want to clearly state what the book subject is, how it will help the reader understand whatever it is you're talking about, and then a few bullet points to show what the reader will learn. I think bullets and ticks just looks really easy to read and quickly identifies the contents. Alexa and I will be giving you more tips on how to generate great content blurb in the next series as well. You can then have a testimonial or a quote from within the book, something that encourages the reader to buy. I like to format these with a line above and below just to give the back a bit of sort of a distinct places of retail space. So you've got heading, book blurb, quote, and then the next section is the author box. Now, this can include a picture of the author and then a little blurb about them written in the third person, and explains why are the expert in what they're writing about. Then a logo can go at the bottom of the person who's written it, or the person's website, and then an ISBN box. I'm always amazed at how many people don't give this box, and that's the space where the ISBN barcode goes, more thought. It's a fab little place where you can share all sorts of info. So tune in to find out more about that in our next series. Price. Now, for business books, you don't have to display the price. In fact, you don't need to display the price at all on any genre. But remember, when you come to register your book, you will need to declare the price then. So I don't really have any good reason why not to display the price. This is something that I like to put in the ISBN box, but it can go anywhere on the cover, just not the front. That's very magazine-like. So that's the business book cover sorted, unless you have anything else to add.
I know I've seen on the back of some books who the cover design is by, though I don't know whether it's.
Yeah, that usually goes underneath the ISBN box. You usually have it in very, very small writing, cover design by, or picture for cover by. But I'll be talking about that in the ISBN retail space in the next series when we talk about ISBN boxes. But yes, you can include that too, for sure. Yeah. Now, children's books. These need to be slightly different, and I think the visuals need to be carefully thought out. The cover is very much what attracts the buyer, so making sure that the visuals are spot on will definitely help with sales. I usually encourage my writers to get their covers sorted sooner rather than later so that they can use that to get starting with pre-sales. In fact, I often get them to get their audience involved with the process. This way, you can then set up a choice option for your fans, and then they get to choose which version they like best. This way, the audience is part of the process. They are then emotionally involved with the whole thing, and then they're much more likely to buy. This worked brilliantly with Laura McLennan's book, Don't Be Silly. And I think she managed to sell over 300 copies of a book before it was even finished written.
You did this with our podcast logo, actually, didn't you?
Yeah.
We had different backgrounds, different coloured backgrounds and yellow highlights or a full yellow thing, and did a poll on LinkedIn. And that's why you have our lovely bright yellow logo now.
Yeah, exactly. Get your fans involved in the process, then they'll feel emotionally attached to the project, definitely. Once you've got that visual right, you then need to get the typeface correct. Now, you don't necessarily need a strapline on a children's book, but you could have something like featuring X, Y, and Z if it's a character style book, and then have the illustrator's name and the author at the bottom. Most children's soft cover picture books don't have space for any text on the spine, so I would leave this blank.
It does depend for children's books, I think it does depend on how long the book is. I mean, for early readers upwards, so puffin size books, for instance, then there'll be room on the spine for the book title and the author name. And also for hardback picture books, just because of the depth of the cover, really. But for a soft cover picture book, there may not be enough space to put anything readable on there.
Yes, exactly. So just be wary of that and ask your printers as well. As I said, if you're uploading it to KDP, unless the book is 80 pages, there's not going to be any room for text on the spine anyway. The back can be a simple blurb with perhaps a character from the book and the usual ISBN box and website, if appropriate. I tend not to have the formality of an author box on the back of a children's book because it needs to be light-hearted and simple to read. That's my rule. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm just saying that's what I follow. Now, fiction. Fiction can be a lot simpler. So you basically have the title with maybe a subtitle, which we've already discussed, but not always, and then the author's name. And you can include a testimonial on the front if you wish. I like actually the author's name to be quite big. That seems to be very on trend at the moment, is to have the author's name nice and big. So don't be afraid to do that yourself. The back can just be the back blurb with the ISBN box. You can have an author box, but most commercial fiction doesn't. So it's up to you whether or not to have one or not. Now, alignment. So let's have a quick talk about alignment, and that is how the back blurb is set out. So how the back blurb is set out is totally up to you, but my rule of thumb is left aligned for non-fiction and then centered for fiction and children's books. There's no hard and fast rule for this, so it's entirely your personal preference. Although if you're going to have a lot of text for a business style book that include bullets, center aligning it will just make it look odd. And that's it. That's a whistle-stop tour of covers. Next week, we're going to be looking at the more visual side of your book. So the rule of thirds for the cover, the type of picture files that you need for your book, plus color styles, and obviously what your printer will require when designing your cover as well.
Yeah, which all sounds fabulous. And I think helping to design the cover of your book is such a creative part of self-publishing. The responses of authors when you, Alexa, send authors their book covers for the first time and they're posting it on their social media accounts, and they're so excited because it's what's been in their heads is now right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it suddenly becomes real and their name is on this book cover. And it's like, oh, wow, I've really written a book. So I think the cover is a stage to really look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I sent Laura's her cover, she cried. And when I sent Holly her cover, she cried. I think sometimes it can really evoke that emotion.
Yes.
And it's something definitely, if you're going to do a children's book, seriously invest in a proper cover designer. I think business how-to books, you could possibly get away with cobbling something together yourself. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, but you possibly could, only because you've obviously got your email list already and you've got your fans waiting. But I think for fiction and children's books, it's really important to get yourself a proper cover designer.
And I think generally, I mean, I don't know, because remembering back years, but I feel as though books, the way they look now, everyone has really upped their game. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether there's just more competition or what it is, but I think book covers these days are just beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are some lovely style fiction authors now. I know the book that you chose because of the cover, because you posted it on social media.
Yes.
We'll put the link in the show notes for you to see.
Yes, The Monsters of Brookhaven.
Yes. And I mean, I agree. Don't know what it is. There's a sort of a genre of this style of very sort of, they're illustrated book covers. They're not photographs. They're being illustrated. And you can clearly see they've been commissioned illustrations for the book. And I think you're right. They just look lovely. I hope you found what to put on your cover valuable. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we're going to be looking at more explanation on the how-tos. So for now, it's bye from me.
And bye-bye from me. Thanks for listening.